Greetings. I am Detective Sergeant Wilfred S. Peterman. Welcome to the 5 Cs, the classic crime college of Cape Cod, where we teach you how to become a great detective, in the tradition of Sherlock Holmes or Rick Bates, the 85-year-old detective. Today's class will be taught by Chief Bates himself, the #1 crime stopper in all the 48 interlocking states of the USA. And now here is the famous detective.
Thank you. I am the Detective Rick Bates, former Police Chief of Cape Cod. As I have stated in my book, solving any case, no matter how difficult it may seem, is simply a matter of finding a starting point. I call that the first dot. Then I look for a second dot, and so on until finally I connect all the dots and solve the case. Here now is today's conundrum. See if you can solve it before I do.
This case comes from Barnstable, which is the biggest community on Cape Cod. Among its several villages is Hyannis, the unofficial capital of Cape Cod, and it is where I had my main office back when I was the Chief of Police of the Cape Cod Police Force. Many afternoons I had my lunch at Morello's Cafe on the western part of Main Street, a section of the road that the locals call Leftover Main because it is the beginning of the seedy section of town where crime and corruption are most likely to be found. I liked Gino Morello, who owned the restaurant, and I loved the food. But I did suspect that Morello might be involved in a few shady deals. One morning, Morello called me and said that he'd been shot. I called an ambulance and then got into my squad car and drove right over to the restaurant. When I got there, the ambulance had already arrived and Sergeant Peterman was investigating. What have you found, Sergeant?
I was on patrol, Chief, near Ben and Jerry's ice cream shop, when I heard a loud noise that sounded like a gunshot. I ran towards Morello's cafe and people on the street said the shot came from inside the restaurant. I went in, and the chef said that the gunshot came from Mr. Morello's office. The door was locked. I busted it down, and inside I saw Morello on the floor, with glazed eyes, staring up at the ceiling. His white shirt had turned red from the blood that ran off it and made a pool around his body.
Good work, Sergeant. Now, what did the EMTs say about the cause of death?
They said he died from a bullet, shot directly into the heart. He died quickly. Right by his side is the murder weapon, Chief. I haven't touched it yet. It looks like a Glock 19. The back door to the office is wide open. It looks like he was killed by an intruder who dropped the gun and then ran out the back door. Yeah, no, Chief, there has been some talk on the street that Morello was in trouble and was being blackmailed. The blackmailers probably killed him.
No, Sergeant, not likely. Blackmailers want to bleed their victims, but not to the point of death. There was no murder here. It is a plain and simple case of suicide. Okay, students, it's time to go to work. How did I know that it was suicide and not murder? I will give you the dots and see if you can connect them. Dot number 1. Morello called me before lunchtime. He said he had been shot. Dot number 2. Less than 5 minutes later, I arrived at his restaurant and found Sergeant Peterman hovering over the dead man who had been shot through the heart. At this point, some of you are expecting me to say dot number 3, blackmail, that Morello was being extorted. That may have been so, but there is no dot number 3. Dot number 1, Morello called me. Dot number 2, Morello is shot through the heart and dies almost instantly. So let's connect dot 1 to dot 2. Dot 1, Morello calls, he lies, saying he's been shot. Dot number 2, Morello shoots himself through the heart and dies in seconds. When Morello called me, he was not shot, he was setting up an insurance scam. He wanted his death to appear to be murder so that his family could collect the large life insurance policy that he had. Did you solve the case? If so, give yourself an A and go to the head of the class. That's it for today, students. I'll expect you here for the next session at the 4 C's, the Cape Cod College of Crime.